absolutely brilliant. Here we have the title screen of The Fantastic Adventures of Dizzy, a 1991 NES game developed by Codemasters and released in the US by Camerica. In Europe, the title was Fantastic Dizzy. This is the, I think, 7th installment of the mainline Dizzy series, and the first on a home console. The title screen demonstrates how the gameplay works, depicting our hero Dizzy eating a fruit and then using objects to reach a goal, in this case a diamond some bird dropped. That giant bean Dizzy uses is actually quite important. That's how you reach the last boss. Let's skip ahead a few seconds to the cast of colorful Yolk Folk, who remind me of the Smurfs if they were egg people instead of blue people. But where the Smurfs were gnomes or something, I have no idea what's up with the Yolk Folk. Will they hatch? Did a larger animal lay them? If cracked, can they heal? Who knows? Don't worry, none of them receive any character development and get one few-second scene each. They're all in trouble one way or another because of the evil wizard Zax, and the player has to help them. For example, cool dude Denzel was so cool that Zax froze him solid, so you need to find a match and some kindling to light a fire in his house and thaw him out. Denzel gives you an item, then ignores you being a useless buffoon. Dizzy's girlfriend Daisy appears to be a cheerleader. Is there, like, a Yolk Folk college sports team? Dizzy's sister Dora shares her haircut with a better-known Dora, but that's a coincidence. Dora the Explorer didn't come out until 2000. There were 2 editions of Fantastic Dizzy. The first has a blue logo on the title screen, and the second, a red. Differences abound, the most notable of which is that the blue version Dizzy walks like his shoes are covered in molasses. Easier to control, yes, but this draws out the playtime and makes some gaps tougher to jump. For the sake of my sanity, I played the red version instead, and that's what you'll see the rest of this video. This scroll explains the plot. There's more to it than this, actually, but I'll get to that later. The game starts with Dizzy in his home, awkwardly smiling. He's ugly, but he grows on you, and compared to his old look, well, I'm glad the NES Dizzy doesn't have sunken skull eyes. Critics back then said Dizzy was over-the-top cutesy? They thought this thing was cute? Agree to disagree. In an earlier episode, I dipped my toe into the galaxy of unlicensed NES games with Lin Zeshu No Smoking. Fantastic Dizzy is another unlicensed cartridge, but from the opposite side of Eurasia. If you know anything about 8-bit European gaming and also aren't deaf, you've noticed this music sounds extremely British. Yes, Codemasters is a UK-based developer. Like fellow famous British developer Rare, Codemasters was founded by 2 brothers, in this case Richard and David Darling. These days Codemasters belongs to EA, probably bodes ill for the company's future. I originally meant to do a video about Codemasters' shoot-'em-up MiG-19 Soviet Fighter. From the title, I'd expected a Red Scare-style Cold War cultural artifact, but no, you're actually a Soviet pilot. These guys I'm blowing up are nebulously defined terrorists who have the military strength of a small nation, a common trope in 80s video games. I like the goofy communist theme, and how you get a good sense of blasting forward at high speed. This part reminds me a bit of Konami's Top Gun. And the music? Totally awesome. Then I remembered that I'm no good at shoot-'em-ups, so I jumped ship for Fantastic Dizzy. By some weird coincidence, yet another set of brothers, Andrew and Philip Oliver, created the Dizzy IP. Dizzy starred in a popular series on British computers in the 80s, most of which were side-scrolling adventure games with fairy tale themes. Ah, listen to that lovely Spectrum tune. They made their hero a walking egg. Yes, an egg, the famously delicate sex cell used to make meringue. By the second Dizzy game, the music was sounding much closer to the high-quality tunes you hear in Fantastic Dizzy. This is all the more impressive, since Spectrum music was traditionally a form of medieval torture. In Fantasy World Dizzy, the Oliver twins introduced lore and a cast of wacky characters, including the other Yolk Folk. I guess this is the Sonic Adventure of the franchise. Like in Fantastic Dizzy, the Yolk Folk live in a treehouse village in a magical world inhabited by trolls, dragons, and humans. The bad guys this time around are the Evil King and Wizard Weird, the latter of whom is not Zax. Zax doesn't turn up again until the 4th installment, Magic Land Dizzy, which is also the first one designed by Big Red Software. The series largely involves Dizzy fighting Zax and rescuing the Yolk Folk over and over, most especially his girlfriend Daisy, who, what else, keeps getting kidnapped. Some of the Dizzy games went off in other directions, such as Fast Food, a Pac-Man clone. To be fair, Dizzy resembles Pac-Man. I guess giving a round thing boots, gloves, and a face is an easy character design. Just ask Coconuts Japan. Fantastic Dizzy marked the series' debut on home console, and the Oliver twins wanted it to be the Iggy lads' biggest, fanciest outing yet. To play up this title's prestige aspirations, it shipped on a gold cartridge like The Legend of Zelda. Also included was a fold-out map, like that one that came with the Famicom classic, Mother. Like that map, it looks interesting, but is not very helpful if you're trying to navigate around the game world. But Fantastic Dizzy is big, alright, including several previous Dizzy games inside it. At one point, Blackheart the Pirate forces Dizzy to walk the plank, oh no! Once Dizzy lands in the abyss, he has to use the bubbles as platforms to reach the surface before he suffocates. For some reason, you have to do this even if you already have the diving equipment that lets you swim. This concept draws from a full-length action game entitled Bubble Dizzy, really watering down the brand. Pun intended. At least Dizzy learned to hold his breath longer than earlier in the series, where water kills instantly, like he's a blue hedgehog instead of an egg. As you may have noticed, Fantastic Dizzy is a cross between a platformer and an adventure game. Like a standard platformer of the time, you have a set number of lives and a health bar. Some earlier installments only gave you 1 life, or no health bar, so this is a welcome improvement. Fantastic Dizzy refines a lot on what came before. Unfortunately, one feature has stuck around unchanged since the beginning of the series. Dizzy earns his name for his peculiar jump. He somersaults through the air, and because of his round shape, he builds up a momentum that causes him to tumble again when he hits the ground, sometimes more than once. Unlike Mario or Mega Man, Dizzy doesn't stop moving on a dime, and like in real life, once he's jumped, you can't change direction. As a result, the platforming is tricky, especially near the end when you have to somehow jump between all these clouds. If you fall from too great a height, Dizzy is stunned for a moment. Dizzy, being an egg, really is delicate. Every second he even slightly elbows an enemy, he loses health. His supposedly peaceful, safe treetop village is full of giant spiders that look eerily realistic next to this cartoon egg. Oh, come on! That enemy placement's just cheap. Invincibility frames do not exist in Dizzy's world. Remember, there's no save or password feature, run out of lives, and you have to start over from scratch. Fantastic Dizzy is long, complex, and features multiple deadly tests of arcade skill with no warning. Remember that Bubble Dizzy section? There's also a long minecart sequence that I think you can only learn via memorization. It reminds me of the minecart sequence in the later Pac-Man 2, but from a different camera angle. I hate it. Music's good, though. This part where Dizzy rides a barrel from Keldor down the Crystal Falls while a troll chases him is more fun, not to mention pleasant to look at. Water is so beautiful. This is also its own standalone release, Dizzy Down the Rapids. Zax turned your sister into a frog because she thinks frogs are gross. After you help her hook up with some fat prince, breaking the curse, he gives you a crossbow to lay siege to the troll's castle. If Dizzy takes damage, his shell starts to crack. Gruesome. This part is actually easy though, once you realize Dizzy can just duck off screen to avoid the enemy projectiles. But again, one game over and you restart from scratch. Like in the other Dizzy games, the idea is that on each attempt, the player will learn a little more about the world and get a little further. This was 1991, but the Oliver twins remained firmly in the 80s spirit, and developers had a different, crueler ethos in the 80s, especially outside of Japan. Japanese video games tortured you in their own uniquely Japanese ways. Modern video game developers remain cruel, but in a much more real-world exploitation kind of way. You know, crunch culture, preying on gambling addictions. Despite the crossbow, so far as I'm aware, the only enemy Dizzy can defeat in normal gameplay is this egg-eating carnivorous plant a short distance to the right of his house. A spray of herbicide will finish it off, and it stays dead the rest of the game. Or so I thought. When I returned here after reaching Zack's castle, the final area, I was shocked to find the plant alive again. So don't leave the herbicide behind the plant is my advice, or you might have rendered Fantastic Dizzy unwinnable. I won't damn the Oliver twins for that, though. This seems like a bug instead of Sierra sadism. To recover health, touch food, and Dizzy will automatically eat it. This also happens if you touch a diamond, more powerful healing items found only in the diamond mines. But even that isn't so simple. There are a limited number of food items in the game, and Dizzy will gladly waste them, so you need to dodge the food like you dodge the enemies up to the point that you really need the healing. Earlier Dizzy games weren't like this. In the original, food killed Dizzy. Eggs are wusses, what can I say? But by Spellbound Dizzy, food healed him, though only if you press the collect button while standing on top of it. His shell must have thickened. Fantastic Dizzy is a step backwards in this respect, at least if you prefer convenience. Aside from food, Dizzy can pick up certain items: a match, a mushroom, a bucket, pirate gold. To distinguish inventory items from the environment, they're always gray, even when their description indicates they actually aren't carved from stone or something. In the first Dizzy game, collectible items would flash a rainbow of lights. The subsequent installments rendered them like everything else in the environment, so it's nice that Fantastic Dizzy doesn't make you guess. But alas, like its predecessors, Fantastic Dizzy has a weird inventory system. Dizzy can carry 3 items simultaneously, displayed in the 3 slots on the bottom of the screen. The pause menu provides a description of these items, which is necessary in some cases. How else would you know this barrel is actually full of rum? Look at Blackheart the Pirate go. Feel like I'm playing fetch with a dog. There are probably a couple dozen items you'll need to reach the ending. You can't just open up a menu and select which item you want to use. No. You'll always drop the last item in your inventory, so if you want to use the item at the top of your inventory, you'll have to drop the bottom one, then pick it back up, then drop the next bottom one, then pick it back up, and then you can use the item you want to use. Shuffling your inventory around and just plain knowing what you're going to need later is as much a part of the challenge as solving the puzzles and staying alive. The idea is that after game over upon game over, you'll memorize what items you'll need where. Early on, your main problem is figuring out how to navigate the huge and unintuitive Yolk Folk village, plus finding the keys to operate all the lifts and enter all the houses. Life is hard for an egg. The reason staying alive is so tough is actually having to go back and forth through dangerous areas to grab the items you left sitting around in your stockpile. Well, if you create a stockpile like I did. Even if you're skilled at dodging the realistic insects and fireballs and the water droplets, yes, even dripping water hurts Dizzy. Running back and forth over and over will inevitably drain your health. Every slip-up stacks, especially given the limited health refills. In addition, there are rare signposts that summon the good wizard Theodore. If you can solve a sliding tile puzzle within the time limit, Dizzy gets an extra life. I don't know why Theodore is so stingy. Perhaps it's payback for Dizzy reading his spellbook in Spellbound Dizzy, sending all the characters to the underworld. The last collectibles are the magic stars floating all over the map. In the blue cartridge, there are 100 stars. In the red cartridge, and I think all later releases, there are a whopping 250. Why are you running around collecting these things? You'll find out later. At least you're running around interesting places. Fantastic Dizzy features a detailed open world with a day-night cycle. Top-notch graphics, too. I love the sparkling water at Crystal Falls and the dismal feel of the deadly waterlogged diamond mines. The environmental variety is great. There is a grassy open plain, the ocean full of shipwrecks, ruins, and treasure, and the disgusting vermin-infested market village Keldor, where the hatred of life runs so deep that automated guillotines run round the clock. For gameplay purposes, those guillotines are like the spiders, except deadlier. That would be a very odd analogy to make between real-life spiders and real-life guillotines. In one area, rain pours down like the debris from the nearby volcano just to set a mood. Dizzy even looks sad about the weather. Aw, this is one expressive egg. When you stop by Daisy's house, Dizzy looks all sad. He misses her. Already makes him a more human 8-bit hero than Mario. Fantastic Dizzy isn't the only cartridge on the NES or Famicom with an open world or day-night cycle. Castlevania 2 features both, and is only slightly more opaque. But Fantastic Dizzy is nonetheless technically impressive, especially for an unlicensed cartridge. Among developers Nintendo never approved for their system, both for the English language and Japanese sides, Codemasters was top tier. Codemasters was also superior to a lot of the awful crap Nintendo did approve. Did better work than most of Rare's NES shovelware. Fantastic Dizzy has a lot of memorable moments. Like in the grasslands, there's a Triceratops-like monster called the ARRRRGGGGHHH. It won't let you cross the plains no matter what until Dizzy finds a roast chicken sitting on the hill. You attain every item so arbitrarily, it's impossible to remember exactly how I found this portcullis handle. Portcullis. The Oliver twins really seem to like that word. It turns up in like every Dizzy game. Anyway, try using the roast chicken near the ARRRRGGGH, and Dizzy sends that thing flying like a quarterback, and the ARRRRGGGH is out of there. Good riddance. In the depths of the diamond mines, there's a huge, ferocious dragon. She breathes fire continuously, easily killing you. In many video games, you'd expect you need to kill her somehow. Instead, if you return her missing egg, she calms down and allows Dizzy to walk around her den. See? She was just an animal defending her young all along. Though you can still steal her eggs again if you'd like to be served sunny side up. The relief I felt when I realized that having the umbrella in my inventory meant water droplets would no longer hurt Dizzy, immeasurable. I also like that after surviving the Bubble Dizzy scene, you wash up on a tropical island with Blackheart's ship visible in the background, and get to swim around the ocean, discovering a shipwreck. There isn't much inside this cave, so it's a nice environmental detail seemingly put there to make the world more immersive. Look at those fish. Some water still means instant death, though, because consistency is for plonkers. You don't need every single item, believe it or not. Some tasks can be completed in different ways. For example, there are multiple items that can be used to pay the troll in Keldor, and multiple items the shopkeeper will trade for a magic bean. Fantastic Dizzy incorporates Bubble Dizzy and Dizzy Down the Rapids, or maybe vice versa. In addition, though not reproducing the whole games, Fantastic Dizzy poaches locations and concepts from earlier in the series. Compare this tropical sea area full of coins to collect to the island from Treasure Island Dizzy, or the Yolk Folk's treetop village to the abandoned treetop village also in Treasure Island Dizzy. Oh yeah, that's fair, I should have seen that cage coming. Old school adventure game trial and error torture. It's ugly. Or compare the Yolk Folk's treetop village to their treetop village from Fantasy World Dizzy, or trading the pygmy cow for a magic bean in Fantasy World Dizzy to trading the pygmy cow for a magic bean in Fantastic Dizzy, or using bait to avoid the ARRRRGGGH in Fantasy World Dizzy to using bait to avoid the ARRRRGGGH in Fantastic Dizzy, or the Troll's Castle to the Troll's Castle in Fantasy World Dizzy, or climbing the clouds to climbing the clouds in Magic Land Dizzy and Spellbound Dizzy and Dizzy Prince of the Yolk Folk, or... wait a minute. Fantastic Dizzy has almost nothing original! The box art's misleading. At no point does Dizzy wear a pith helmet or use a telescope, nor are there two dragons. Zax is operating out of a castle in the sky, not a castle on a mountaintop. The discrepancies make perfect sense when you learn that this is really the box art for Fantasy World Dizzy, which did feature two dragons and a mountaintop castle. The instruction booklet also uses artwork lifted from an earlier installment of the series. No wonder this stuff doesn't appear in the game. After Fantastic Dizzy in 1991, there were only two more original Dizzy titles, Crystal Kingdom Dizzy and Go Dizzy Go, the latter of which was only released in compilations with other games. In 1992, the series ended. I think the main reason isn't only the financial troubles that came when Nintendo was suing Codemasters, but also that the Dizzy series had clearly stagnated. Fantastic Dizzy is the series swan song, and like a Dizzy best of hits album. This way, the North American kids playing the game on their NES could take a taste of the whole franchise they'd so far missed. In earlier installments, the Oliver twins reused sprites to save time. For Fantastic Dizzy, they had to recreate everything from the ground up for NES, so don't you dare call this lazy. Eventually, after stealing a lot of random junk, breaking into the troll's castle, rescuing all of the Yolk Folk except Daisy, and figuring out how to climb this beanstalk despite Dizzy's damn ungainly jumping physics, I reached the floating castle in the sky where Zax had made his lair. The instruction booklet offers more context for what's going on here. Zax didn't walk into town and just grab Daisy. This is bigger than any one albumin-filled shell. It's all about the diamonds. The instruction booklet includes a weird, misleading character page. For example, it implies this ruthless, scary leprechaun is a wacky friend. But most of the manual consists of a shockingly long, melodramatic backstory. I'll try to trim this down, but this story is long. Their days were spent wandering the forest and mining precious diamonds led by a council of wise and respected elder Yolk Folk. The diamonds were traded with trolls in the local town of Keldor for all the things that the Yolk Folk could not make for themselves. So it had been for as long as anybody could remember, until that fateful day, when a dark and brooding stranger came into the land. The wizard Zax, for that was the stranger's missing apostrophe name, set himself up in the castle of Keldor and summoned the head of the Yolk Folk to meet him there to discuss the Yolk Folk's diamonds. The meeting took place in the grand hall of the castle of Keldor, where Grand Dizzy found Zax sitting on an immense throne, surrounded by trolls dressed in armor and clutching axes. Until now, the trolls had been friends of the Yolk Folk. Grand Dizzy introduced himself as the leader of the Yolk Folk and made clear their willingness to trade peacefully. I had in mind a different kind of arrangement altogether. Zax paused as if in deep concentration, missing full stop. Guards, missing comma, seize him! The guards rushed to block his escape, but Grand Dizzy had a trick or two up his sleeve and somersaulted over the heads of the clumsy and unexperienced guards. As Grand Dizzy made good his escape, he could hear Zax's voice sounding inside his head. You'll regret this day. One way or the other, I'll make you and your Yolk Folk pay for this. Tales were heard of Zax building a great cloud castle high up in the sky. The work was being done with ancient magic and the labor of his new slaves, the trolls. For a while, nothing happened. Then one day, somewhere in the forest, a group of 5 young Yolk Folk were out egg-venturing. Yo, dudes, check it out. This is one happening place. Joked, should be a lowercase j, Denzel, adjusting his sunglasses and looking as unconcerned as ever. I think this would be a good place to have something to eat, suggested Dora hopefully, holding up the picnic basket she'd been carrying. She did her best to look faint with hunger. Well, okay, exclaimed Dizzy. Should be a in quotation marks after the okay, should be a comma. Dizzy should have a full stop or a comma after it. The but should have a double quotation mark instead of a single. I mean, this part is really just a grammatical train wreck. Anyway, he says, well, okay, but we're not stopping for long. We'll never find the dragon's cave at this rate! Exclamation point, double quotation mark, full stop, space, double quotation mark. Just a nightmare, grammatical nightmare. And we won't want to be out after dark. Then Dora and Dylan argue about frogs, and Dizzy says, look at those dark clouds over there. That's strange. Yo, I never seen anything like that before, unnecessary comma, exclaimed Denzel, jumping up. Dora cowered. I don't like this, Dizzy. I'm scared, missing comma, Daisy agreed. She held on tightly to Dizzy's hand, missing full stop. Dizzy, let's go home, let's is missing an apostrophe. The friends turned and ran for home. Ow, unnecessary comma, shouted Dozy from behind them. A bird swooped down from a tree straight into him, knocking him to the floor, probably should say to the ground. It attacked me, unnecessary comma, he said, looking around for more assailants. Ah, help me, screamed Daisy. Dizzy spun around just in time to see Daisy lifted off her feet and carried away by 4 more flapping, squawking birds. Daisy, Daisy, he shouted helplessly, chasing after her. Soon he left the cries of his friends far behind. No matter how quickly Dizzy ran, the birds kept getting further away. They flew high up towards the densest part of the strange clouds. Exhausted and stumbling, Dizzy didn't see the open mouth of a disused mineshaft. He tumbled headlong into it. In the dark, he could do nothing but listen to his girlfriend's fading calls for help. Finally, he collapsed into unconsciousness. The evil wizard Zax looked out from his castle in the clouds. He had unleashed his most awesome spell ever. Across the whole land the night grew darker. All that had been good and kind now turned to evil. In the Yolk Folk village, dark shapes and evil creatures drew near. Presumably, Pogie the Fluffle is one of those evil creatures. Certainly is horrible to look at. I kid. Pogie is the Yolk Folk's pet. The next morning, Dizzy woke alone and cold. In the light of day, it was easy to climb out of the mine shaft. Above the trees, he could see smoke curling into the clear sky from the direction of the Yolk Folk village. Dizzy started to run. As he rounded the last corner and the village came into view, he stopped and stood in shocked amazement. He gazed across what had once been their safe and cozy village. Smoke rose from several smoldering mounds, which was all that was left of the huts on the forest floor. They had been flattened, wiped out, devastated. Nothing stirred. Crack, thud, Dizzy span around expecting some horrible creature, but found only Grand Dizzy. He lay where he had fallen to the forest floor. Dizzy rushed to help him. Why would the trolls do this? Dizzy asked himself. They wouldn't want to harm us. Dizzy knew misspelled the answer to his own question. He remembered the birds the night before. Zax had turned the land to evil. Why are the Yolk Folk still good? Maybe it's our thick shells, he thought. So that's why Zax had built his castle in the sky. Without a shell, even Zax had to hide from his own evil spell, high in his cloud castle. Wearily, he helped Grand Dizzy up to his treehouse, undamaged high in the forest. All the time he was thinking of Daisy and the birds that had taken her away. Dizzy decided that it was up to him to find his friends. Maybe, with their help, he could rescue Daisy from Zax's cloud castle. What is with this story? Why all the world-building, warfare, and slavery when all it amounts to is, rescue your cartoon cheerleader girlfriend from the evil wizard? This explains why the land is so deadly, though, including the Yolk Folk's home village. Every single rat and butterfly that tormented us was Zax tormenting us all along. But this is a load of lies, and I know it. Trolls were already the Yolk Folk's enemies in Fantasy World Dizzy, and Dizzy, Prince of the Yolk Folk. And birds and other random animals were out for Dizzy's blood from the start of the series. Besides, Zax's castle is clearly visible in the first game. Dizzy was locked in battle against the evil wizard from day one. Alternatively, Fantastic Dizzy is a reboot, since at the end of Magic Land Dizzy, Zax is a lich, and you destroy his soul in hell! Really? Anyway, having avoided rats and birds and neutralized the spike trap with a carpet, Dizzy swings like Tarzan up to the ledge where the door to Daisy's prison beckons. Finally, we'll make Zax pay. How Dizzy stands a chance against a powerful warlock, I have no clue. We're still totally unprepared. Haven't found a single magic sword or anything. Then I realized how unprepared I really was. Zax's tower. Daisy is held in here, but you'll need to collect all the stars to enter through his magical Stargate door. No! I was short 3 stars. Out of 250, I missed 3. They could be anywhere, in any screen, including the minigames. This isn't the first Dizzy game to pull this completionist crap. In Fantasy World Dizzy, for example, rescuing Daisy wasn't enough. She also wanted you to find every coin in the world so you could buy a house and live happily ever after in bourgeois bliss, I guess. But the sheer quantity doesn't come close to Fantastic Dizzy. I spent like 2 hours scouring the world for these stars. Then I realized I could have used that time to watch Tsuchimoto Noriaki's film Another Afghanistan. Twice. So screw it, this is what YouTube's for. Prince Nick here played through Fantastic Dizzy in less time than I spent just searching for the missing stars. While the main theme triumphantly cheers you on, Dizzy dodges these, evil giant ping-pong balls. Given the jumping physics, I'm almost glad I couldn't finish the game. This tower would have been a nightmare to climb. There's Zax. For all his power, he is only a man. Thank goodness that mirror happened to be right there. Our hero relies on random luck more than anything. Back in Magic Land Dizzy, Zax was a giant. and Dizzy impaled him through the heart using a trident bestowed on him by the devil in hell. Dizzy used to be hardcore. Hard-boiled, I guess. That's it? So did Dizzy break the spell that made the land evil? Has he liberated the trolls? Dizzy might be royalty now, since Prince Clumsy's returned to the throne, presumably, with Dora. Fantastic Dizzy is excellent on the level of music and programming, but playing through to the end is seriously not worth it for most people. That's why I did it, or almost did, so you don't have to. Fantastic Dizzy was ported to a bunch of other systems. You're looking at the Sega Mega Drive version, which seems almost identical to the DOS version. It's a little easier with some obstacles taken out. While the colors are obviously much better, I think the NES game looks nicer overall, with a more expressive Dizzy. This art style misses the mark. The original featured eerily realistic giant spiders, rats, roaches, and horrifying ferocious giant moths all over the place. Really gave you a sense of medieval pestilence. This version replaces some and makes the rest cuter. The other characters have much better animation. Now you can clearly see Blackheart sprinting off to drink the rum, proving he isn't a dog. This episode's lesson probably has to do with the relationship between British microcomputers and the Famicom that came about in the form of British NES cartridges, showing how disparate countries and cultures interconnect. When the Famicom came out, I doubt Satoru Iwata was thinking about how it would affect computer game companies in the UK, and how the formulas that somehow brought wild fawning acclaim on the European microcomputers floundered when transferred to home consoles. Fantastic Dizzy is a best-case scenario for a series hopping from the ZX Spectrum to the Famicom. If you can't get your fill of Dizzy for some reason, amazingly, the Dizzy series has come back to life. In 2015 and 2016, respectively, the Oliver twins released 2 Dizzy NES ROMs onto the internet for free, Wonderland Dizzy and Mysteryland Dizzy. As of April 2021, Dizzy the Adventurer is available on itch.io. In December 2020, for the first time in 28 years, the Oliver twins, with help from some Russian developers apparently, released a brand new Dizzy game for the ZX Spectrum. Wonderful Dizzy. This is a pure labor of love made in a year of strife, available for free download at yolkfolk.com. Wonderful Dizzy is genuinely wonderful, a parody of The Wizard of Oz with mellow music and dreamy environments. The graphics are delightful, impressively detailed and dreamlike despite the limitations of the Spectrum. This is my favorite Dizzy game, probably because its art, writing, and design incorporate modern sensibilities instead of the sadomasochism of the 80s. If you want, you can play the whole Dizzy series on yolkfolk.com. Since this website also hosts the official download of Wonderful Dizzy, I figure the Oliver twins must at least tacitly approve. I'll put a link in the video description. This egg has kept up a following almost 40 years after his debut. Despite the goofiness, weirdly dark setting, and crass commercialization, Dizzy captured people's imaginations. After finding many forgotten, obscure video games, what's on this channel ain't the half of it. I'm touched to discover such esoteric stuff that not only maintains a devoted fan base, but's kept freely available with the creator's permission. It's really sweet, like meringue. But Wonderful Dizzy isn't a Famicom game, so for now, like lovers in the night, we part. Anyway, if you like that, you can like, comment, subscribe, share this on your Twitter or whatever. The next Famicom Adventures will also feature an unusually dedicated developer. So dedicated, the man bankrupted a major company in pursuit of his artistic vision. However, there will be substantially more panty shots, government conspiracies, and battles to the death than in Fantastic Dizzy. Watch out.